because roasting is an art and coffee is a craft. The cheapest coffee you get in Karachi is for 550 rupees.
It's most of a lifestyle choice rather than something
Definitely.
that you take for work. And what would be the consumption of coffee?
I would say 1000 kgs a day.
So it's more of you're saying a class thing at this point?
Yes, it is. I would say the coffee culture is very high in China. It's very high in Thailand. So it's mostly because of that. American people are not used to that specialty coffee. They go to that Tim Hortons and Starbucks coffee. So they're not used to the specialty. So it's what we are having here in Pakistan currently is more of from the eastern side, I would say. The largest producer of coffee, if you're talking about Arabica, is Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of Toyota Corolla of coffee. Then comes in Colombia.
Hello everyone, Eid Mubarak and welcome to yet another episode of All Things Money. Today we're going to talk about coffee in Karachi, and we have in Karachi or even Pakistan at that matter, and we've got Fahad Fatani, who is the owner and entrepreneur of a cafe in Karachi called Luna, and we're basically going to talk about the pricing, the economics and everything and anything related to coffee in Pakistan. How are you doing, Fahad?
I'm good, Ammar. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, Fahad, tell us about coffee in Karachi or in Pakistan for general.
I would say the coffee trend has been growing like crazy for the last 2 years. We are seeing like a new cafe opening up every week in Karachi. Currently, we have like 117 cafes in Karachi right now. And the market value of coffee, I would say, has grown tremendously in like last 2 years. Currently, it's at $250 million currently. And compared to the tea market, I would say it's not that big as compared to the tea market, but the new generation, the Gen Z and the millennial are very much into coffee these days.
So, you're saying the market value of coffee in Pakistan is $250 million?
$250 million.
How do we get to this number?
I got to this number because we have a data for it. In 2023, the coffee that was being imported in Karachi, in Pakistan itself, was around like 9 point something million. But last year, there was a surge in roasted coffee by 200% and by unroasted coffee by 85%. Currently, the amount of raw material for coffee that we import in Pakistan is around like $40 to $50 million. And obviously, that turns into a $250 million market because it has value added service to it. There are cafes opening up every day. Then you have like big market players like Nestle and other companies, Coca-Cola, bringing in their ready to have beverages of coffee. So that gives a very big growth to the market right now.
So, the tea market is about $1 billion.
I would say
billion and a half.
2.2 billion at the moment.
Okay, $2 billion and coffee is about $250 million. That's still big. I'm surprised how big this is at this point.
Because there isn't awareness of coffee, I would say, in the suburb areas or maybe in other cities of Pakistan other than the metropolitan ones. So people aren't aware of coffee right now. If you're talking about coffee like a normal coffee or Nestle or any other brand that comes in a sachet, I wouldn't consider that to add too much value to the market. But if you go to a cafe, you might get in coffee for average price of 700, 800 rupees. So when you add value to that coffee, so definitely the market grows accordingly.
So, what is the footfall of a typical cafe?
I would say at Luna, any day we get in like 700 to 800 people every day.
700 people, and
Yeah.
that's like higher end, But on average, like one of the better ones out there, on average, 117. Obviously, not everyone's getting 700, 800
I would
footfall.
say minimum is 100 at least.
100 at least. And what would be the consumption of coffee?
I would say
On
the
a typical
consumption
day?
of coffee on a typical day in Pakistan is approximately, I would say 1000 kgs a day.
1,000 kgs a day.
1000 kgs a day.
And that is per cafe or?
Total 1000 kgs a day.
1 ton every day we're consuming
Yeah,
coffee.
yeah, the easy 1 ton a day.
All right. So one thing is when you go to a cafe, it's mostly coffee and a lot of dessert on this side. It's just, I've always used to call, a friend used to say that, we don't have coffee shop, we have dessert shop, we just sell coffee. How does that work out? Someone gets coffee, they're always getting something on this side. What are the margins like here?
Coffee margins, if you're talking about here, the cost of the drink itself might cost you like 40% direct cost, But depends, like a cafe like ours, we are running like it's more like a luxury cafe. We have like a 50 people sitting space, so it has other expenses as well. So I would say you would save approximately 20 to 25% any day on anything you sell in a cafe.
All right. But what's really value generator here? Is it coffee or the dessert?
It has to be both.
Okay.
It has to be both, because with coffee you need to have something. If you're just selling coffee, I don't think someone would come up to you and sit for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes for a coffee. You have to have something that pairs well with the coffee. Some dessert, maybe a croissant or something like that.
And what would be the average ticket size that we're going to look at here?
I would say it's 1400 rupees per person. If you get a dessert, average dessert, if you're even talking about a croissant for 500 rupees and a coffee for 750, sums up to somewhere around 1500 rupees. Not at Luna, I would say. At
But
Luna,
on average, we're just
yeah,
talking
that's
about
1500
ballpark.
rupees at least. The cheapest coffee you get in Karachi is for 550 rupees.
Yeah.
That's the cheapest coffee. And if you take a donut with that, that's another 300-400 rupees if you're talking about local brands here.
So there is variety. I think that the cheapest would be around 550 and most expensive maybe like 1500, 2000 in that range.
I think it's less than 1000.
Less than 1000. And
maximum is
everyone's
1000.
operating within this space.
Yeah,
And the coffee trend is mostly, I would say, sit down rather than take away at this point.
People prefer sit down currently over takeaway. It used to be takeaway earlier, but now
So
it's
it's
sit down.
most of a lifestyle choice rather than something
Definitely.
that you take for work.
Now it's more like a chilling spot for people now, because people get free from their schools, colleges. They do come in, people get off from work, they would like to sit in like for 30-40 minutes, an hour at a cafe, because you don't have anything else to do here.
So that's the thing, right? It's more of a lifestyle choice.
You can say
Because whenever I used to like take an early morning run or whatever, and I want to get coffee, there's barely any place open at 8 a.m. The earliest coffee place opens at 9 a.m. And even then they're like, my machine nahi chal rahi meri, like whatever. So I just feel coffee in the city or the country is more of a lifestyle thing than something that you have with breakfast.
I would say for cafes, it's more of a lifestyle thing, but there are home consumers who love to have coffee at home as well. But they do have like machines, they can have coffee at home. But if you're talking about cafe, usually I would say it's like totally opposite what happens abroad. Even at our cafe, there is less traffic till 12 o'clock, but after 3 p.m. onwards till 12 at night, the place is crowded. So you are right, it's more like a chilling spot, a lifestyle. You do it, I do it. It's peer pressure, I would say.
I don't do it at all actually. I avoid crowd at this point. So yeah, what are the most popular coffees out there? What just sells more? What is a typical order like? Let's put it this way.
If you talking about DHA, specifically about DHA, it's more of lattes.
Okay.
It's iced lattes. But if you're talking about across the bridge, it's more like frappes.
Okay.
So across, it's here people want prominent taste of coffee with some flavoring, but there it's mostly people like dessert coffee because they're new to coffee now. Because we used to have, if you know, you used to have butlers in DHA. It's been like ages now.
Butler's bad, horrible.
It's
Pathetic.
bad compared to what you have now. But people did have that knowledge of coffee because espresso was there, butlers were there. The people usually come to DHA. All the hit high places of coffee are opening up in DHA.
All right. So it's more of you're saying a class thing at this point.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay, and that will also determine the ticket size.
Definitely, it does. It's more of a class thing. If you see more cafes are opening up in DHA, everyone wants to come there, have a picture, put it on the Instagram, be social about it, talk about it. I went there, I tried the new cafe. It's mostly like that.
So yeah, it's mostly Instagram related.
Yeah, I would say that.
And whenever Instagram drops, maybe all of this will drop as well.
No, I don't think coffee would drop because coffee is more. It is Instagrammable, but it's also an addiction, I would say. Because the coffee size around the world is approximately, the coffee market value is $120 billion. So it's not very significantly rising each year. It's like a rise of 1 or 2% every year. But still, the market would be there because I would say coffee is one of the oldest drinks that's there in the market.
But that's the thing now. Globally, it's more of a breakfast thing, or let's say on the run thing. Like if I get coffee, maybe I get a $2 coffee, $3 coffee, maybe like $4 is max. No one's paying more than that. That's what the Starbucks basically just like crashed and burned at this point. What's happening here? So I just see here we've got a very nice peak in some kind of a lifestyle coffee thing. For how long do you think it's going to sustain?
I think coffee is here to live forever now. Because talking about coffee, mostly in Asian side where I got my training from, the coffee usually I see there are cafes those are open up till 12 at night, and if you go even if you go in Middle East, so most probably people start having their coffee from morning till night. The cafes, if you go to Kuwait, if you go to Saudi, the cafes are crowded at night, not at day. So coffee is here to stay. People are very addicted to it. Like a person like me has like 7 filter coffees a day. So if I don't have my coffee a day, it doesn't matter where I have it from. I have to have my coffee. So I think it's here to stay and it's not going away anywhere soon.
Okay, so we talked about the preferred order. Someone you said latte and then the frappes. And why is that? Is that due to a difference in flavor or different in price points? What's happening here?
It's in difference in preference because people have had coffee in DHA in these areas, and people who have been abroad, they live abroad, they have studied abroad, they know what coffee is like. They related to their preference there abroad. They've been abroad. Maybe someone is living in Canada. He's used to have having coffee early in the morning. Or maybe people on the other side of the bridge, they aren't aware of that much coffee. They used to have that called desi cold coffee. So they want to replicate that in a specialty coffee way now.
So is there anything wrong with the desi cold
I
coffee?
don't think there is nothing wrong with it until you have your dosage of caffeine and you get that, it's fine.
So that's the thing, if you go to offices or whatever, you got coffee. My preferred coffee is the Pittigui coffee, okay, which you don't get anywhere actually. And that is something that and I think that is more of a local variant that
No,
has evolved over the years.
that's Dalgona coffee. I think that's very famous in Asia, especially in Vietnam. That's cream, coffee, and sugar, whisked, and then you add milk to it.
Yeah.
So that's
So
famous.
yeah, Dalagona. Now we don't see that in cafes. So why the disconnect?
We don't see that in cafe because I think basically right now, as far as I'm talking about Vietnam, where it came into being, Vietnam is one of the largest producer of coffee. They do robusta coffee, so there having sweet coffee with condensed milk and all these things is common because their coffee is more bitter, is robust, because it's like UK robusta coffee is like wild coffee. But when you go to other parts of Asia, they have like specialty coffee there, so they want their coffee to have that coffee notes as well as balance of milk. But there the coffee is so bitter, they just want to have that coffee hit and have to make it bearable to drink. So there is a difference there. The national coffee for Vietnam is that ones with the condensed milk. So they usually prefer coffee with something sweet because their coffee is so harsh, and usually the robusta coffee is like has 2.5 times more caffeine than normal Arabica coffee. So that might be the difference.
And I would say the how coffee is prepped in different parts of the world is also different. So what are we replicating most? Is it mostly the Western influences because again they are grammable, or a lot of the Eastern stuff as well?
Uh, it's I would say it's more of the Eastern stuff. I would say
Okay.
it's not of the Western stuff because mostly the coffee, if you see all the competitions, all the places that have been happening are happening in Asia Pacific. Mostly, I would say the coffee culture is very high in China. It's very high in Thailand. So it's mostly because of that. American people are not used to that specialty coffee. They go to that Tim Hortons and Starbucks coffee, so they're not used to the specialty. So it's what we are having here in Pakistan currently is more of from the eastern side, I would say. It's not from the
So
western side.
one thing that's been really taking off on the Western Hemisphere is Yemeni coffee. Do we see any of that here?
Yemeni coffee. Most probably people aren't aware what Yemeni coffee is. Yemeni coffee, I think people prefer it because it's very scarce. It's a war zone, and it's really hard to get Yemeni coffee. Especially there are two kinds of Yemeni coffee. There is a specific way of doing a Yemeni coffee, and there are Yemeni beans that you use for coffee. Even at our place, we do Yemeni filter coffee that costs you like 3,000 rupees a cup. So it's very scarce, and people who do appreciate that coffee would love to have that.
So what are the more popular destinations or areas, origin points where coffee is imported from? I would say some would be Colombia, you said Vietnam. Yemen, what are the major areas
I
that you
think
can talk about?
the largest producer of coffee, if you're talking about Arabica, is Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of Toyota Corolla of coffee. Then comes in Colombia. The coffee was originated itself from Ethiopia. It's more Ethiopian coffee. And then you want to get into designer coffee, then it comes in Panama and Yemen and all those, Costa Rica. Those are more of designer coffees. They were taken there, they were
What do you mean by
mutated.
designer coffee?
Designer coffee is like, then designer coffee has, coffee is known according to a score. Anything above 90 is like, I would say it's like designer scarce coffee. It's micro lot. It's very expensive. Like
Okay.
Yumni, we buy it for like $500 a kg, compared to any coffee we buy in Pakistan for maybe $25 a kg. So there's a huge price difference in that. The altitude of the coffee where it's grown is different. The care, the process, how it's been processed, dried, it's different. Maybe it has a special fermentation process, anaerobic process, carbonic macerations. Like there is this Kima alchemy. That's a processing place in Yemen that's like 130-year old and has the most complicated process in the world. When you're having like processes like pressure regulation, and then you have a temperature control, humidity control, proper washing, anaerobic fermentation. So obviously this would rise your price for coffee, and people who aren't into coffee for a long time won't even notice the difference. It's like basic coffee for them. But like people like who have proper knowledge of coffee would actually tell you this tastes like, specifically like it has notes of this, it has notes of that. I have like clients coming in every day. Those usually belong to the Gulf countries. Like I have like Arabi people coming in every day to my cafes, and believe me, literally they can literally tell from my filter coffee, it has notes of this, it has notes of that. They have better knowledge. When compared to Pakistan, if you're comparing things to Pakistan and abroad, the only problem here is because the price for coffee, it might be 1,000 rupees here, but abroad it's only like $3. It doesn't matter for them. Buying a coffee worth $20 is also not a biggie anywhere abroad. So we also have to face that issue here. All the cafes here, we use imported beans. All the cafes here are using locally roasted beans because for them coffee is no different to any other coffee.
So when you say imported beans and local roasted, we don't grow any coffee anyway. What's the value chain like?
I would say it's the local and imported. By that I mean is that they import green beans.
Okay.
I think that is for like 200 rupee, 2,000 rupees a kg. They roast it, would cost them like 3,000 rupees a kg. They sell it for starting point is 7,500 for basic coffee in Pakistan, and premium ones go up to 25,000 rupees a kg. But when you're buying coffee from abroad, I would say the basic coffee you get there is for 10,000-12,000 rupees a kg, because they have big roasteries that requires special process, special qualifications, temperature control, and requires millions of dollars to set up. I was looking at a roastery to set up in Pakistan at international level was costing me around like $1.3 million. So I don't think people are ready to do that right now. But the people who do understand these businesses, I've seen the black tea business in Pakistan. Anyone who owns a processing company for tea is earning like millions of dollars per month. If you look into that as a business, there's no harm in putting up a roastery here in Pakistan and producing quality coffee, because you can also export coffee. You can also grow coffee in Pakistan. People are working in places like Azara, where the altitude is suitable, where the weather is suitable. So it's a good market if you want to work in Pakistan for coffee. But I would say there is no comparison to imported coffee that's roasted abroad and the coffee that's roasted here. People, because roasting is an art and coffee is a craft. So people don't have knowledge. Like people abroad, they've been roasting coffees for decades. Professionals, certifications, quality equipment, good water, controlled environment, electricity, cheap gas, incentives by the government. There isn't even a body for coffee here in Pakistan at the
But
moment.
do you need a body for coffee? And why do you need a body?
I do think we do need a body for coffee because we do need to regulate things here.
Mm-hmm.
Government
I mean,
does.
if the government comes, it's going to destroy everything in the process. Why do you want the government to be in this business? I mean, you should
think
be happy
because
the government is not looking this way.
I think the government should be here to regulate things. If government sees that Pakistan has a good potential, a low labor cost, which can ease in producing coffee at a lower rate, and we can export it abroad, it would
So
be a
why
good
isn't
market.
anyone doing this already?
Because people don't want to put in so much money into this business right now. They aren't aware of the size of the business. I would say this can turn into one of the biggest industries in Pakistan if you're talking about coffee, especially uh, talking about people I know around me. I would say only 15% of those people usually want to have chai or tea. Everyone wants to have coffee. When you're seeing such a big shift in coffee, and there was a rise approximately of 200% in last year only for imported roasted coffee. So why not invest into this? Because I would say over the time, we imported around like 200,000 tons of black tea last year,
Hmm.
and the coffee was only limited to, I would say, a couple of thousand, 6 7,000 tons last year. So there is a shift. This was at 3,000 tons like last year. It was at 1,000 tons a year before that. So there is a 55%, 100%, 150% rise. So next year you might be seeing coffee market is 12,000 tons.
Hmm.
After that, you might be seeing it's at 24,000 tons. So it can grow significantly. So if someone wants to invest, there are like few roasters in Pakistan who also have international recognition. I saw they were at World Coffee Dubai this year, and they were nicely recognized. Even if you see like other things, those are coming up around the world. Like I saw like 2 days, 3 days back, our olive oil from Balochistan was awarded somewhere in New York. So it's being recognized. I saw these purple mangoes grown in Malir early in the morning. There was a news that the rare purple mangoes, those are like $1,000 a kg, are now being grown in Pakistan. So Pakistan has the potential to do that, and it has cheap labor. That's the best point about this country. You have cheap labor compared to expertise abroad. If you're having somewhere there to roast your coffee, you might need to give him couple of $1,000. But here, you know what's the payload
So what
like.
would it look like after this show? You and I decide, okay, you know what? It's a big business. Let's just do something. What are the steps that one should take?
The step one should take is, first of all, is educating people about coffee, because people here aren't educated, even the cafes.
But that is fine. See, that's what I was saying. It's evolution. My favorite example in this case is the market for pizza. Like, I've actually written a lot about it as well. Pizza Hut came in about 96, 97, and it was a big hit. And after that, it just took a life of its own. And now in the city, in Karachi, or in the country for that matter, you can get a pie from everywhere from 200 rupees to 4,000 rupees. There is a price point for, there is a market for every price point. There is a demand at that, and someone somewhere is doing it. So the market just evolves on its own. And you've got training, as you said, people, they just got trained and they just train more people, and suddenly, the things that open up. So how can this happen? In the case of coffee, let's just take example of pizza, the whole evolution and the growth story.
You have to have.
And this is no education, just people just learning things on the go. See, I think when typical of coffee drinkers or cigar or the specialty types, there is this let's say some kind of hotness that comes with, oh, this one's better, this one's not better, and this guy doesn't know any better. Maybe the market doesn't want that. So what we need to do is really look at what the broad picture looks like. It's not about what people want, because maybe it is about what people want and can you serve them or not. And that, as you said, Vietnam, that's a completely different coffee culture from rest of the world, because weather, culture, everything determines that. So in Pakistan, how do you see, let's say we go outside right now and say we need to start something, and we take a 30-year view of things. What do you think would the future look like? A broad roadmap.
I think the future for coffee, as I'm seeing these days, new roasteries are popping up every day. Okay, maybe they're importing it. I don't know. Maybe they're roasting it locally. I don't know. There are like two big roasters in Pakistan. Those are currently operating, and I think there was one earlier, and the second one came up, and they took 50% of the market because they had good marketing team. They were going to every cafe. They are doing ads online. but that won't help in a broader picture.
Mhm.
The broader picture would help that you have to bring coffee to the cities where it's not currently there. It should be an alternative to chai, I would say.
And that would mean reducing the price point.
Reducing the price point initially, like I think
Because as we saw in the case of pizza, there's a pie available at different prices. And if you're comparing with tea, that is also at a fairly lower price point than your typical coffee. So this means if you really want to go mass market, the price needs to come down, and that can happen with scale. Once things really pop up, with scale, the price can actually come down.
but internationally speaking, the coffee prices have gone up because to such a huge demand. But you're right, low quality coffee can be introduced, which mostly we import from Vietnam,
Yeah.
can be introduced in the market at a very lower price if these chai dhabas start keeping basic coffee.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be they make it through an espresso machine. They can do it manually like they do it in Vietnam. Like they do a pour over with robusta coffee. So definitely that would bring the market price down, but only for that specific segment, not for everyone. As the coffee culture is increasing day by day, cafes are introducing more specialty coffee with higher grade score at a higher price.
So that's my thing. There are only finite number of rich people in this country, and that's a very small number. I can give you, I mean, ballpark is maybe like 100,000 households. That's about it, which can across the country, largely split between literally six districts. Who can do this? There are more than 250 districts in the country, and when you want to go mass market, you really need to look outside the six districts or outside the 100,000 households. How does that work? Because a point will come where the demand for this, and as we discussed earlier, this is a very, I would say, value sensitive market segment. I go to a place, I don't like it, I'll go there again. If they serve me bad stuff, I'll go somewhere else. So there are very quick shifts in preferences that can come. How does that, what needs to be done to make coffee really mass market or a painless substitute to tea?
If you're talking about numbers now, the
Yeah.
highest sales of coffee in Pakistan is instant coffee. Okay, followed by green beans and then followed by roasted coffee. So if you want to increase the coffee demand in the local market amongst all these mass people, then you have to have that instant coffee, because instant coffee is a cheaper alternative. But the problem here is we're even importing that instant coffee from abroad, like from Vietnam, from Taiwan. Nestle is doing that, other brands are doing that. The basic step would be introducing coffee to every household. That's instant coffee. So we bring in cheaper alternatives. You don't have to buy Nescafe, you don't have to buy Davidoff, you don't have to buy any other brand. You should have a local brand selling cheap coffee. I think Imtiaz was
Yeah.
doing that. I'm not sure if it's doing it right now, but it was doing that. So that should be the first initiative. Introduce people to basic coffee. You can have
So who does? I think that is where we're going to, because chai is everywhere, right? And chai is different qualities too. Okay, we probably get the worst quality here anyway. Whatever the packet is, potentially the worst tea you can ever drink. And so why don't we see coffee using the distribution channel of chai in Pakistan?
Sir, there is a very big difference in the price point. Maybe a chai is for 300, 400 rupees a kg, the basic one. But the coffee, if you buy like
The
even
basic one.
the basic Nescafe, a 500-gram bottle would cost you 2,000 rupees. Still not affordable for these local people to use
So
it.
if you, again, as we said earlier, if you set up a roastery in Pakistan, if you set up some kind of business here where you import green beans and then process it, will it become cheaper?
Definitely it would. But you have to work on a specific thing for that. Then you have to import the specific green bean that should only be used for instant coffee. That has to be of a lower grade. So the things goes like this. There is a step for everything. Now you introduce them to the instant coffee first. They have the taste of coffee. They start liking it. They like the high of it. Then it's a step up. Then you introduce them to a basic home cheap coffee alternative. Then they come into specialty coffee.
I think that's excellent. That's where it was going towards. How do we get there?
Local people here would have to set up setups for instant coffee, especially here. They have to put up a factory that works on instant coffee, or maybe you also get that instant coffee liquid abroad, that's a concentrate that you just pour into your cup, and then you have a good coffee. You add in milk, you add in water, whatever you want. It's instant and
Yeah.
it's cheaper.
Hmm.
So they have to come up with that first for that.
Yeah, that's interesting, but that's where he was going to. How to really make it mass market. So one thing that I've noticed is matcha being popular across the world and it's got a fair share of fans in Pakistan as well. What's really happening there?
You know what happened post COVID is when people weren't able to go out of their houses, especially in Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is the largest consumer of matcha in the world, followed by North America. Now there is a very big trend of matcha because people are very health conscious post COVID. And matcha has this very clean energy compared to this jittery spikes of coffee. It has that chemical called L-theanine that has a very calmer energy. So most of the nutritionists, health professionals are now recommending matcha. What is matcha? Matcha is like premium quality green tea that's milled, and the biggest share of the market for ceremonial matcha comes from Japan. In Japan itself, the matcha market is of 391 million. It's talking about matcha itself. But the Japan's itself tea market is $8.9 billion. Out of that, only matcha sums up to 6-7%. And there wasn't any rise in local consumption of matcha in Japan in the last 3 years. Only there was a spike in exports. Even the numbers of production weren't high. In 2002, they were producing 3,500 tons of matcha. 2003, it was 3,800. Currently, it's 4,100. 50% of all of that is exported abroad. And it's exported abroad. Even the numbers of matcha didn't rise in export drastically, but the prices did because there was a shortfall. And matcha is milled with hands. So Pakistani people currently, I would say, even at my cafe, matcha sells more than coffee. It's more of a trend. I think people don't have the hang of it right now. It's more like someone's doing it. I want to do it.
Instagrammable.
Someone's doing it, I want to do it. But people who can actually understand the flavor, understand the high, are loving it. I would see the matcha. There are no real numbers for matcha in Pakistan. Matcha comes under the same HS code as green tea. So we imported green tea worth $11 million last year. We have the data of 2023. It was $11 million, somewhere around like 6,100 tons of tea. And I think out of that, only matcha was 500 kgs. So even currently, the matcha imports in Pakistan is less than 1,000 kgs only for these boutique cafes who want to do matcha soft serve, who want to do matcha lattes. Those are very famous, especially amongst Gen Z and millennials. They're coming in every day, they want matcha. And now they can differentiate between good and bad matcha. So matcha comes in three grades. Firstly is the ceremonial grade. Ceremonial grade means even in Japan it's used for special occasions. Then you have the culinary grade. That's used in lattes and food and other stuff. And then comes the industrial grades. That is used in ready packed drinks, supplements, beauty products. Even in Japan, they don't have matcha that much. Matcha isn't a very big hype in Japan. It's in their tradition because it was introduced in the 12th century. Matcha came in from China. It was taken by a monk called Isai to Japan, where he gave it to his friend. He was also a monk. He planted the seeds in Kyoto in 30th century, where matcha came into being. Even currently, Japan cannot handle the supplies because the supplies are going crazy right now, and the prices have gone up by 25% last year compared to what they were earlier. Currently, Japan is importing 245 million worth of matcha. It imported that in 2024. The number was 195 million in 2023. Compared to 2022, it was only 85 million. and there wasn't any rise in the production. The rise in production was hardly 7%, but the prices have gone up like crazy. It has doubled itself. Japan used to do like 1,400 tons of matcha in 2010. Currently does 4,170 tons. It has almost tripled in size, and people around the world are loving matcha and knowing its benefits. Majority cafes in Asia's are changing their coffee cafe to a matcha house now, because it's more easy to get it ready, it's more easy to sell, it has less hassle to it, because it's just a green tea powder. You don't need a machine for it. You just have to put
It's
in
just
hot
green tea, right?
Yeah, it's just good quality milled green tea. You just have to put in some water, mix it, and pour it over milk, water, soda, whatever you like.
Yeah.
So matcha is like that.
Oh, very interesting. So I think this is it, Fahad. Phenomenal. I think I've learned more about coffee in the last 30 minutes than anything else. Good luck for coffee,
Thanks,
and let's
Ammar.
just hope we finally break the dominance of tea in this country.
I hope so.
All right. Thank you, Fahad,
Thank you.
for your time today. It was a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you.